I'd like to thank the Babson student who last May gave me the opportunity to be here tonight. So wave and say hello. Thank you very much, my dear. So I'm going to talk about magic. Do you believe in magic? I wish you do, because a little bit of magic can make it easy to navigate life's waters. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples of magic that happened to me. The first one has to do with this slide. So you can look at the slide two different ways. One way, you can look at it as a generational divide. You see the Italian mother and father are dressed for dinner. It's a formal event, but their two children have their "I don't give a damn" t-shirts on. Italian families, thousands of them, grew the north end of Boston into a wonderful, safe and secure neighborhood. They did it by collaborating with each other. There were 40,000 people living in this tiny spot, just a third of a square mile. And the families had to work a system of values and behaviors to make it all work, and they did. We were dutiful people. We woke up in the morning and we all went to work, or we went to school, or we stayed home and took care of the children and cleaned the house and cooked. But in the evening, we all converged on the dining room table. We loved food. And we were all great cooks. And we loved the repertoire of recipes that we had to choose from. Whether it was the mundane broccoli, pasta, and chicken, or the outrageous production of the universally celebrated Sunday gravy. And I had such a hard time remembering that line. I was wondering if I would remember it tonight, but I didn't. Can I say it again? The outrageous production of a universally celebrated gravy. Yes. So now, picture a pot. Picture a large pot. Picture a cauldron stuffed with meat. And I'm talking meat, London broil, pork roast, Italian pork sausages, hot or sweet, spare ribs, and everybody's favorite pig's feet and chicken feet all went into the gravy. And bresaola. Don't forget the skirt steak that we pounded thin and then seasoned heavily with grated cheese and Italian parsley, garlic, a little oil, and then rolled up that bresaola and tied it, and then placed it carefully into the cauldron of simmering, seasoned tomatoes, where it lay on top of the other meats or beside them. Wow. Wow. The meats varied from week to week because the butcher might not have everything you wanted, or you didn't have the money to pay for it. But always, always, always in every pot, there was one meat that was the sine qua non of the gravy. Can anyone recognize what meat I did not include in that list I spewed out? Say again? There we go. Brava. Brava. The iconic Italian meatball. Without that meatball, you had nothing. It didn't work as a gravy. We spent a lot of time at the dining room table, gossiping, talking, encouraging, critiquing, intuitively passing down millennia of whispered recipes, of love of art, of love of music, of love. We spent a lot of time, now this is another tricky one for me. It shouldn't be tricky, it is. We spent a lot of time at that dining room table. And here I go, I'm drawing a blank. All right. because at the table is where we learned social skills, where we learned emotional stability, where we grew and we exuded a sense of confidence that we could meet with any challenge nature had to offer. Now, that was a magic that took 20 years to grow. And in distinction from that, I'm going to give you an instance of magic that happened in an instant. My mother was a great cook. Among great cooks, she was a great cook. But she was not a good entertainer. My mother had a nervous condition that just overwhelmed her. So when she invited 3 of her closest friends to come for lunch, wow, this was an earth-shaking event. This was a once-in-a-lifetime happening. And when her girlfriends got my mother's invitation, they were crazy with glee. It's like they won 2 tickets to a Taylor Swift concert. Well, my mother planned the day well. Everything went well at home. And she left the last 30 minutes of the morning to complete the recipe, to start the recipe. Unfortunately, 30 minutes early, there was a tap on the door, and her 3 overeager guests arrived. My mother froze. She tried to smile, but it was forced, and you could tell. She offered some feeble excuse as to why her eyes were watering. I was 8 years old. I could see my mother's anguish. I had never prepared food before, but I had watched her make this recipe. In the last year, she made it 195 times. We loved her tuna salad. So spontaneously, I got up and I started to assemble the ingredients she needed, figuring I'd give her a leg up when she was ready. She'd find it all there. I got the tuna fish. I got the lettuce and tomato and celery, mayonnaise, Italian olive oil. I hope you're writing this down because you can make this tonight. So I gathered all the stuff, and I had a loaf of Italian bread, still warm, golden, crusty, not an hour out of the oven, and I know the exact time because I was the one who went to buy it. In fact, I got to the bakery early. They weren't ready yet. I had to wait 5 minutes, and then they came out of the oven hot, slid it into the bag, put it under my arm, and I walked home. And I ripped the heel of the bread off. That was the errand boy's prerogative. You could do that. I don't think my mother ever saw an entire French bread. Never saw, always with that heel. She wouldn't recognize it. Well, here I was with the mise en place all done, waiting for my mother to step over and do the work. But Mummy was having a good time with her girlfriends. Why not? Someone else was doing the legwork. So she looked at me without saying a word. It was like, please. And so I did. I began to chop. And I think you can surmise how this story goes. I chopped all the vegetables. I assembled them all, put them in the stainless steel bowl that I forgot to mention when I was gathering the ingredients. A bowl and a can opener and a fork. They were all there. And I made the tuna salad. I seasoned it. I tweaked it, tasted it. Lovely. I got the Italian bread. I sliced it, and I stuffed all that tuna fish in, stuffed it in, and then I cut it into sandwiches. And I gave each of the ladies a sandwich. You should have heard the oohs and ahs when they bit into their sandwich. I said bit. I didn't mean to say bit because bit conjures up an image of that American bread, Wonder Bread, I don't know what they sell now, soft white bread for toothless people. The Japanese make that same bread, and why? It's so popular. Anyway, it wasn't that. They ravenously attacked that loaf, and they ripped the reluctant chunk of bread and tuna fish. and they chewed themselves into ecstasy. Now, you may think that I regretted their lack of decorum. On the contrary. On the contrary, it was a thrilling moment for me. I had created edible art. But that's not the end of the story. That's the beginning of the story. I had created edible art. And the memory of that moment stayed with me for years. For years. I went 4 years to high school, to a private high school. I went 4 years to BU to get a BA, and 3 years to BC to get an LLB. I joined the list of Massachusetts bar members. I hung out my shingle, law office open. And about this time, that tuna moment began to get restless. And I had a client who offered to pay his legal bill with an abandoned, decrepit building. I looked at the building. It had good bones, and it was in a great location. And that's where that tuna moment emerged and wove its transformative magic and changed a lifetime of study and altered a lifetime of aspiration to practice law and turned me into somebody who put a restaurant on that ground floor of that building, and for the next 30 years operated a high-end Italian restaurant. Thank you. Thank you. And if you think that's going to get me off the stage, whoa, no. No, because I haven't answered the question yet, what does that have to do with us? And I'll tell you, I look over the audience, and what I see are new adults. And new adults with all the problems that are endemic to that age. What college to go to? What graduate school to go to? What course of study should I follow? What classes do I have to take to complete that course? How do I deal with an unexpected pandemic? How do I deal with a broken heart? Broken because those Taylor Swift concert tickets were bogus. But I'll tell you that in the most severe storm, an island will appear, an island that we can navigate to take a breath, to compose ourselves, to calibrate our compasses, to find our true north, to look at the horizon beyond the storm. The thing is that these opportunities might take different forms. It might come in the form of an unexpected invitation. It might come in the form of a reward because you stepped into the breach to help a friend. It might come as a serendipitous opportunity to open a restaurant or to act in a commercial or dance in a play. But whatever form it takes, we have to be ready. And we have to seize that moment. We have to grab it because it might be your moment, a magic moment. Do you believe in magic?